Welcome everyone, we're very excited to have you here. You're the chosen few who made it into the room because it was highly anticipated, which is great to see. It's the first of a new series that we're launching, and so this is Founders of Fundus. It's the kickoff of a year-long series where we will be running every first Tuesday of the month. So today we will hear from Lukas and Cici. Both Oxford alum, went off to do some incredibly cool stuff. We'll kick off with Cici and then go to Lukas. Cici founded a company called Serox and recently launched Oxford Venture Angels. And Lukas is now working on this, I think it's your second venture, after you encountered some hiccups launching and exiting the first one that then led to Novabook. I'll ask Cici to come up here first, say a few words about what you do, and then Lukas, and then we open the floor for Q&A and discussion.
Cool. So my name is Cici Muldoon. I am the founder and CEO of an incredible company called Serox, and also the co-founder of a new network in Oxford called Oxford Venture Angels. Essentially, my journey in life has come from being a quantum physicist, so from the world of quantum computing, in which I used to trap atoms with lasers. That led to an obsession with the interaction of matter with light, which is still at the heart of what I do at Serox and still my sort of passion as a physicist. I ended up working in the world of spectroscopy and ended up analyzing wine. Now, I have gone from analyzing wine to analyzing urine. I know that seems like quite a random leap, but actually the two are quite similar. So with previous company, when we analyzed wine, it was analyzing wine through the glass without taking the cork out by means of Raman spectroscopy and machine learning. So spectroscopy is basically the study of matter with light, right? There's many forms of spectroscopy out there, but essentially it entails shining laser light at stuff, and stuff has a certain chemical composition which it will impart on the light. So the light will come back with a pattern which can be mapped back to the chemical composition of that thing. So that company, which used to be called Verivan, it pivoted. Around 2022, we had analyzed all hosts of other highly complex dilute liquids like olive oil, manuka honey, injectables, perfume. And our chairman at the time said to me, well, why don't you look at blood? And I said, well, there's that small problem of that woman called Elizabeth Holmes in the States, and I don't really want to go anywhere near biofluids, plus biology scares me. In the end, I listened and stumbled upon a huge amount of literature where people were using Raman spectroscopy or a variant thereof called surface-enhanced Raman spectroscopy, and they were identifying cancer and other diseases in both blood and urine with very high accuracies, high sensitivities, high specificities, which are your false negatives and your false positives. So made a decision at that point to pivot the company. Went for urine because it's highly accessible. There was a lot of advantages I could see over blood. I'm happy to report that 3 years later, we have a fully functional biobank and a fully functioning bit of kit, which consists of a device and a cartridge, and we can find cancer in urine, specifically bladder and prostate cancer, in just 3 minutes. Now, I want to tell you why this is important. So bear with me if I tell you a short story. So imagine that Bob, 57, who's a really fit guy, and he's just run a marathon last week. He wakes up one morning and he finds blood in his urine. And he panics a bit and he goes to his wife and he's like, what's wrong with me? And he flaps about for about 5 days, eventually goes to the doctor. And the doctor says, well, it could be UTI, it could be STI. You could have gone running a bit too hard in your training and have a bit of trauma, but it could be cancer. Most likely of which it could be bladder cancer, potentially it could be kidney cancer, potentially could be prostate cancer. So we need to set you on a diagnostic pathway to make sure that you don't have these things, right? So suddenly Bob feels rather panicked because he might have bladder cancer. So at this point, the doctor refers him to a urologist. So he goes home, and the normal wait, at least in the US, is approximately 2 months for that first appointment to happen. Here in the UK, we have a statutory should be within 2 weeks, but normally it takes a long time. So during that time, Bob is suffering anxiety. And then when he finally gets to see the urologist will book him in for a first appointment to make sure he does have hematuria. And then he will book him in for something called a cystoscopy. Now, for those of you in the audience who don't know, a cystoscopy involves putting a camera in your urethra and looking around. An experience that I personally do not ever want to have. Now, here's the real kicker. 80% of cystoscopies performed both in the UK and in the US come back negative. Bob did not need to have that procedure and the agony of the 20 days. Now, the reason for that is because the GP in the first place would rather over-refer, better the devil you know that you don't want to miss them. However, there is a problem. There's two problems with this. In a UK context, we can't afford it. It gums up the system. There's people who are not getting it because you have all those people that didn't need it. In a US context, even the 20% that come back positive, doctors miss 25% of the time. So those diagnostic misses, they are petrified that they will be sued, as are the insurance companies from the top. Worse yet, there's 25% too few urologists in the States. So there's a whole heap of people, 2 out of 10 million people with hematuria in the States get referred, right? So a whole heap of people not getting that cystoscopy who need to be getting it, right? And evidence is that in women, it takes even longer. It can take up to 6 months for them to have that visit. Now, what if I were to tell you that Bob, the day that he walked into his doctor's surgery, he was told, pee in this cartridge, pee in this cup, we're going to put it in this cartridge, put it in the machine, and within 3 minutes, he knows whether he definitely needs to be fast-tracked to the urologist for a cystoscopy or not. That frees up the system, so it's a cost save. But it also means that for him, it's not the anxiety, it's peace of mind. Now, I'll place it in your heads also that some top urologists we've spoken to in the States have said to us, as an adjunct test, if I were to perform this test alongside cystoscopy, I am giving the patient extra reassurance that they don't have it. And particularly in the US, people love to pay for new tech that will make sure that they don't have. So this is Serox is my main day today. We're going after bladder cancer first, going to market in the States. We are we're submitting for FDA in Q2 of next year. Already had our pre-sub going for bladder cancer de novo. Soon thereafter, we'll follow up with a 510K for those of you who know in the audience, based on our own predicate, followed by followed by prostate cancer and then kidney cancer, with the aim of having a triple test in one cartridge for bladder, prostate, kidney. And the reason for that is because Bob, once he's finished having his cystoscopy, if that came back negative, the next port of call is to say, now we need to rule out kidney cancer, which is the next most frequent one, which means that he has to have imaging, which again, expensive invasive procedure. And if it's not kidney, then we've got to rule out prostate, which means PSA, which is not a very good test. It means a rectal exam, and then it means a prostate biopsy at the worst case. So we're talking about replacing all these expensive invasive tests with a urine test at point of care. Now, the other half of the screen that you'll see here talks about OVA. Oxford Venture Angels is a new initiative in Oxford where essentially a supper club, an angel network, and it was born out of the desire to do something different. It was co-founded by myself, by Mark Evans, who's my Serox CFO, and a gentleman called David Ford, who some of you might have come across, who's also one of the most active angel investors in the UK. And we all agreed that we kept going to events in Oxford where people would keep pointing out the problems over and over. Founders are being screwed over, excuse my French, and access to capital is not good. Foreign investors want to come in, they don't get good deals because there's a stranglehold. And my biggest problem from the outside is I looked at it and I was like, it's a whole bunch of silos. Everyone's replicating work here, doing initiatives after initiatives at the business school, at this, there, the other, and nobody is talking to each other, right? And everyone's against each other. It's like, OSE, no, OUI, no, I just thought this is absolutely silly. We need to be collaborating, right? This is why Americans, and sorry, I'm not American, I'm Mexican, but this is what Americans do well. They collaborate, they merge, they find synergies. This is the first thing when people say, oh, there's a competitor of yours trying to do something in blood. I'm like, great, let's phone them up and see if we can work together, right? Because that's how you move forward. So the three of us kind of thought, or I sat there actually at the time and thought, I want to do something about this. I want to change this. Now, as a little secret I'll let you into in this room, I actually thought it was a Trojan horse for investment into Serox. So I thought maybe here I'll find some. I then discovered that it wasn't angel territory anymore, sadly. But what we have ended up with, I'm pleased to report, is a really fantastic reception from the Oxford ecosystem. Everyone is really pleased to have us. We've got everyone and we want to play with everyone. You know, we've got OSE on board, we've got independent angel investors, and what we want to foster really, and where we want to be different, is that we want to have individual members who are venture builders, who are exited entrepreneurs, who can bring more than capital. Of course, capital is important, and we are looking, you know, to raise significant rounds for our founders. But more importantly, also, we want to look beyond the Oxford ecosystem and assume that Oxford ecosystem means only Oxford spinouts. There is Harwell, Cullum, Bicester, Ellison. There are so many things going on in Oxfordshire that we ignore. I myself, we're in Longhambra. I'm not a spinout. I was a startup. I'm an alum. I did my PhD at the Clarendon in the university, but I was on my own as a startup, you know, so I'm not a spinout, don't have OSE on my cap table. There's a whole heap of people like me out there that are just not seeing the light of day. And I honestly believe that for the UK to drive the innovation and the tech that we want going forward, it has to become more collaborative. And that's what OVA stands for.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. So next up, we've got Lukas, who is one of these founders that made it out of Oxford and built two exciting companies so far. Please just tell us a little bit about your journey, about what you're building at the moment, what led to that, and well, first of all, good to have you back in Oxford.
Yeah, thanks very much. So I'm Lukas. I'm a co-founder and CTO of a company called Novabook. We are a full-service end-to-end accountant for startups, basically. But no, I'm not an accountant by training. So why did we end up starting an accounting firm? So, like going back in time, so 2017. I left Worcester, just finished my degree. I wanted to, start a company. Basically, it was, a lot of people, they have ideas that are kind of, super useful based on having problems. I think a lot of young people when they leave university, it's just like I just want to start a company. So like, what does everyone do who's in that position? Well, they tend to start an ed tech company, which is why you get so many of these ed techs springing up. So yeah, we started an ed tech company called Seneca Learning. Myself and my co-founder Stephen, who I went to Worcester with, and what was Seneca? It was basically like Duolingo for what is Seneca? It's basically like Duolingo for your GCSE and A levels in the UK. So for students, it's more engaging. For teachers, it automatically marks their homework. It saves them a lot of time. And for parents, they can kind of keep track of their kids' education. So Seneca right now, like 98% of the secondary schools in the country use it. We scaled up before we sold the business to 12 million users. Ruben was our head of growth there, who's there today. So that's mostly down to him. A lot of people using it, and we sold the business in 2022. But our pain point the whole time when we were running Seneca was finances, like running the finance function. We end up spending a huge amount of money, like 6 figures every year on accounting, because a lot of transactions, complex business model with like a lot of B2C stuff. So there was a lot of transactions. We hadn't spent up huge amounts of money on it, and then when we exited the business, it was really great for all investors and shareholders and everything, but Stephen and my co-founder and myself, we ended up taking like a seven-figure like impairment based on mistakes that our accountant had made super early stage. So we were kind of thinking like, we just sold this business. We had to stay there for a couple of years, but it was really quite a relaxed time. Like what we're going to do next, and so we wanted to kind of look into that problem of why is accounting quite error prone? Why is it quite expensive for what it is, basically? When we looked into accounting firms, specifically for startups, we found a few problems. They all use these lots of different point solutions to achieve stuff. So there's lots of moving data between different systems, which just creates cost and creates mistakes. Second thing is what happens then is they outsource a lot of stuff, so it makes the problems worse. You get a lot more mistakes, and it also means that the specific knowledge that you need for specific stuff in startups like EMI schemes, SAS, EIS, all that kind of stuff. A lot of that expertise is not necessarily the bread and butter of like most accounting firms, and that's like that led to the mistake that cost us like a lot of money at the time. Yeah, so what do we do at Novabook that's different? Well, we build a lot of integrated software so that we can get rid of a lot of the manual work. And what that means is our accountants can focus more on kind of like the value add, and the specific expertise for startups. So that's what we're doing now. One shout out I wanted to give is to one of our customers, actually, Empirical Ventures, which is like an SES EIS fund. Really, a lot of the kind of founders in the room, we like a great fit for a lot of you guys. They really focus on kind of deep tech, early stage startups. So let me know if you want me to like put you in touch with them. I'm part of it as an angel, but also one of our customers, and I know that they've familiar with some of the companies that they work with, and I can only say great things about them. So let me know if you want an introduction there. But yeah, that's everything from me.
Well, amazing. Thank you so much.